Hi. I am back. I've been very sick for the past 48 hours. So, two things. First of all, I'm not drinking anything boozy today. Instead, I am drinking a Walmart brand ginger ale because my stomach's still feeling weird. Two, I'm not contagious. It has run its course. Any of you with small children will know that if they get it at school, you're going to get it. So that's part of being a parent. So, but I'm feeling much better now. I ate some oatmeal and I was actually able to keep it down. So, yay me. Also, I took a poll on Twitter, and you guys, or at least 30 of you guys, wanted me to talk about the X-Files Season 4 episode, Unruhe. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That's how Dana Scully pronounces it in the show. So that's what I'm going with. Any of you German experts, if I'm mispronouncing it, please correct me in the comments. So, this episode, I really liked it when I was a kid growing up. And I watched it yesterday while I was in quarantine. And it was really hard to get through. Hello, here's our friendly neighborhood tractor. Hello. Make hay while the sun shines, as they say. So, it was very difficult to get through. This episode, probably more than any of the other X-Files episodes, triggers my fears of men. So, we'll get into that in a little bit. But Unruhe is an interesting episode. It flies under the radar, and I think that's too bad, because it is an episode that foreshadows things probably greater than any other X-Files episodes. It foreshadows things not only that will happen within the series, but it's kind of meta. Like, it foreshadows things that the people who have made this episode come to be, it kind of foreshadows their different projects that they will be in, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. I'm thinking of a little show, you might have heard of it. Gillian Anderson starred in it. It's called The Fall. I think this episode, more than any other, foreshadows Gillian Anderson's The Fall. So, we'll talk about that in a little bit. This episode is written by Vince Gilligan. Heard of him? He had this little show you might have heard of called Breaking Bad. He got his start writing a lot of X-Files episodes. I think this is one of the first ones he wrote. Always knocks it out of the park. I always wish he had been the showrunner for the X-Files. The show would have been far better if Vince Gilligan had been in the showrunner's chair than a certain man we'll never didn't he who shall not be named, Mr. Chris Carter. So anyway, Unruhe. The episode begins with this Volkswagen Bug, this yellow Volkswagen Bug. My dad had a yellow Volkswagen Bug, so I have a special place in my heart for them. It rolls up to this drugstore. And again, I think, how different would this episode have been if it had been made today? Because with digital photography and our phones taking goddamn pictures, this whole episode just rotates around film development. So I don't know how different it would have been. So these people roll up in a Volkswagen Bug, and this woman gets out, and her boyfriend is being a gigantic tool. She's putting on lipstick. He's like, it's a passport photo, not the cover of Vogue. And then, hello, don't spill my ginger ale. My cat's here being a little tool again. And she's like, I'll be 10 minutes. And he's like, make it 5. And a little bit of a spoiler, when this guy dies, I don't feel sorry for him. So the girl that's going into the druggist, the actress, will play Eric Foreman's sister in That 70s Show. And she's also in the season 3 episode of The X-Files, Shizzy. Again, another X-Files episode I have a hard time pronouncing. She's one of the evil psychic girls. So, she goes in the drugstore, she meets the druggist, and the druggist is just the sweetest, most lovable old man. He's like, you got any big plans on your trip? You know, and, I really want to love this old man, but I'll get into why I can't exactly in just a minute. So he takes her picture and she goes back out. It's pouring rain, by the way. And she goes back out to her car and she finds her boyfriend dead. He's stabbed through the ear. Content warning, this is a pretty gruesome one. And the cigarette he was smoking is like burning his upper lip, which is just a terrifying shot there. And this guy in a yellow raincoat like passed her. He stabbed her in the shoulder. She passes out, and the last shot before the title sequence is him dragging her away through the rain. And again, this episode triggers all my fears of men, and especially strange men. So after the title sequence, we get Mulder and Scully riding in the car to this crime scene in Michigan. And I gotta say, Mulder's like explaining the case to Scully. So when the druggist took the lady's passport photo, he looks at it, and when it develops, and it shows her screaming, and like there's these ghostly figures all around her. And Mulder and Scully are on their way to Michigan. And this is the first time Mulder brings up that little aspect of the case. He's like, oh yeah, and by the way, there's a picture of her screaming with these ghostly specters all around her. It's like, Mulder, couldn't you have told Scully that before you dragging her all the way out to goddamn Michigan? What is this, season 4? I think Scully might be a little used to it by now. So they get to the drugstore, and again, this old druggist, he's so earnest and kind. Mulder makes a really gross, ableistic joke. The old man has a brace on his leg. I believe he's a victim of polio. Hello. Mulder says to Scully, who gets to use the stun gun on this guy? And I'm like, Mulder, can you go an episode without body shaming someone, please? He really can't. Mulder body shames everyone. He body shames live people. He body shames fucking dead people. I want to do a whole episode of just counting down Mulder when he body shames corpses. So, So, Scully's like saying, the film could have been tampered with. It was on a shelf over a heater. And Mulder's like just looking at her, nodding. He's like going, And you see this in a lot of like X-Files memes of the Mulder, I do not gaze at Scully. Fox William, I do not gaze at Scully Mulder. And of course he's gazing at her all the goddamn time. But I just find this like so condescending. Like, I'm like, motherfucker, when has she not dropped everything to listen to your batshit theories? Anyway, Mulder says, you want to know what I think? Well, follow me, because Mulder is a goddamn drama queen. So, they go to the woman who is victimized. They go to her home, and they're looking at her pictures of her and her tool boyfriend on the refrigerator. And if you grew up in the late 80s and early 90s, you had this aunt who collected these creepy novelty magnets. And this shot brings me straight back to being 12 years old, being at my aunt's house, and looking at her novelty magnets. There's someone on Twitter, I believe it was Not Another X-Files podcast. Great podcast, by the way. Check them out. I think they discontinued recently. They said that the broccoli magnet on the fridge looks like David Duchovny. Let me know what you think. Now I can't unsee it, so apparently there's something to that. So Mulder's looking at David Duchovny broccoli magnet, and because Mulder is the most annoying and least self-aware human being on the face of the earth, he's like, why would she stab her boyfriend through the ear? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe because he was fucking annoying. So apparently this woman is caught up in a mail fraud scandal. And they're looking through her closet, and Mulder finds a camera. He points it at Scully. He's like, step aside, Scully, it's loaded. Like, Dana Scully isn't the most photogenic human being to ever grace the earth. And he's telling Scully, he's like, about this man, and he was famous for taking these things called thoughtographs. And it's where if he focused enough on the photo, it would, like, take a picture of what he was thinking. And he's like, thought photography goes back all these years. And Scully's like, so that makes it real? And I just want the meme of the little black shades coming down on the picture of Scully, like Shade Queen Dana Scully throwing that shade. So, again, these photos show this woman, like, screaming these spectral pictures all around her. And Mulder says, like, I think the killer stalked her. And he was, like, standing, watching her, and the film in her camera, her Polaroid camera, was, like, influenced by his thoughts. Again, like, if this was made today, would this episode have been made today with all this digital photography and phones, like, taking pictures? So, Mulder tells Scully, he's like, we get to see inside this guy's thoughts. You know, it's the fantasy of a killer. I'm going to talk about in a minute the difference between how Mulder and Scully approach this case and how it's a metaphor for real life. So, it shows this poor woman, and, like, if you want to skip this episode, completely understandable. It's a tough one. Like, there's a lot of violence towards women in this episode, so just content warning. She's walking down the middle of the road. She's in, like, this old flannel nightgown. And they take her to the hospital. Scully's looking at this woman. She has this, like, cocktail of drugs called Twilight Sleep in her system. And Scully's like, give her a PET scan. Cut to the next scene of Mulder and Scully, like, watching her take a PET scan. I've had many PET scans, and let me tell you, it's a very long and drawn-out process. Mulder and Scully were waiting, like, for hours to see this woman get a PET scan. And, you know I say David Duchovny is probably not the best actor. But sometimes he surprises me. And this is one of those times. It shows the image of her brain comes up on the PET scan, and Scully just looks away. She's just devastated. And Mulder looks at her and at the physician, and he's like, what is it? And that's some great acting, both from the woman playing the physician, and Gillian, and David, you did some big boy acting this time. Good job, buddy. Like, Mulder's just confused. He's like, what is it? You know, and Scully's just devastated for this woman. She said, this woman's been given an ice pick lobotomy. And again, like, David, good job, man. I am a fair person. I will give it where credit's due. Mulder's like, so we're looking at, like, a doctor, and he's saying it, like, very bewildered, very confused, and Scully's like, whoever did this did it wrong. And this is one of the most horrifying episodes of the X-Files. A lot of people have said that the scariest, quote, monsters on the X-Files are the white men. You know, they're white men who want to kill and maim women. Like, that's it. Like, there is no mutant or monster or alien that will be scarier than that. Especially for people who are viewing the show who are not cis-het white men. Like, and it's interesting, the X-Files, all of the consistent writers on the show were cis-het white men. Like, this episode was written by a cis-het white man, Vince Gilligan. And it's funny that that should be the scariest monster. The cis-het white man who just wants to kill and maim women. Like, there's no monster on the X-Files that will be scarier than that. And you know why? Because it is all around us in the fucking real world. We'll talk about that in just a second. So, this cop comes in, he's like, there's been another abduction. And, hold on. Wrist is cramping again. I'm getting really bad wrist cramps doing this. I love you guys. You know I'm suffering for you. So, they, go to this place. It's this, accountant. He was murdered, stabbed through the ear. And, his secretary, Alice Brandt, was abducted. And Scully, again, solves the case halfway through the episode through sheer intuition. Of course, through this, she doesn't just good old-fashioned police work. She sees the insignia of a construction company by this accountant's office, and then she sees the same insignia on the crime scene photos. And then Mulder's going to go off and dick around looking at these photographs that were apparently left by the killer because, quote, this is the only piece of solid, this is the only solid lead we have. Motherfucker, what did your wife just do? Finding this insignia that will crack open the goddamn case. I can't with this motherfucker. So, Scully goes and she's kind of sussing around the construction site with this. It's called, it's Scuderian, I think. She's like sussing around this construction site, and, Mulder, meanwhile, is in Washington, and he is, with this other guy, and Mulder has his, shirt sleeves rolled up, and, as my spouse would say, go Mulder, you slutty, slutty little man. Whenever my spouse sees Mulder with his shirt sleeves rolled up, he says, go ahead, you slutty, slutty little man. So Mulder and this guy, they're looking at these photos. The guy's like, this guy's an artist. He did this seamlessly of this like woman screaming and these spectral figures all around him. They like enlarged this one aspect. It shows this old man's face. It shows this guy like with really long legs, and Mulder is kind of stroking the image of the photo with his fingertips, and he's like this guy's passing judgment over this woman like a god. And we'll get to that in a minute, like how Mulder views this case as opposed to how Scully views this case. It's very much giving off vibes of Paper Hearts, where Mulder's like, he says to Scully, I always wanted to find these hearts and count them. We'll get to that in just a minute. So Scully's at the construction site, and she meets a one Gerald Snouse. And again, he's a very earnest, seemingly kind-hearted man, really wants to help her. And I'm reminded of the scene from Sex Ed, where Maeve takes her friend to the police department to file for a sexual assault against her friend, and they see this old man holding a lizard, and Maeve's friend says, "Oh, that's Amy." She says, "Oh, that's so cute." And then Maeve says, "I wonder if," she's talking about the old man, "I wonder if he ever sexually assaulted anyone." And like I was talking about the druggist in the beginning, he seems like such a kind and earnest old man, you know. And Mulder's like making jokes like, he can't be the suspect. And then you see Gerald Snouse. He also seems like a very earnest, kind man. And I'm like, yeah, how many serial killers are like that? Just, they seem, every time you see a serial killer or like a mass shooter, what are their neighbors saying? He was so nice. I never would have suspected this. Like, and I'm reminded of the scene in The Fall, and we're going to talk about The Fall a lot in just a minute, where Stella Gibson is talking to Reed, the pathologist, and she asks Reed, she's like, "What do you tell your little girls about men?" And Reed's like, "I tell them, don't approach or beware of strange men." And Stella's like, "Strange men?" And Reed's like, "All men." And like, I think of that. Like, yeah, the druggist looks like this really kind and earnest guy, but doesn't Gerald Snouse? I mean, like, how can we tell the difference there? So Scully takes out her FBI badge and looks up at him. He's wearing these stilts, and I feel very seen. I am 5'2", just like Gillian Anderson. She's also wearing this tan pantsuit with some big old buttons, and I love to see Dana Scully with some big old buttons. So, she gets a call from Mulder, and he's like, "Hey, Scully, this guy we're looking for, he, like, has long legs disproportionate to his body." And Scully does a classic Mulder move and just hangs up on him mid-sentence. And is that a dick move? Yeah. But, is it good to see Mulder, like, get a taste of his own medicine? Absolutely. So, and then she's looking up at Schnauz, and she says, you get a close-up of her face, and she says, "Unruhe." And he books it. What's the line where all the umbrellas are like chasing the guy on the beach, and it just goes, "Run." He starts running in stilts. He crashes, of course. He's trying to get them off. She's like, "I'll shoot." And homegirl shoots. Guy stops. She's searching his pockets, and she pricks her finger on this ice pick, which you're assuming is used for these horrific lobotomies on these women. So, take it back a little bit. The first woman who was abducted would say Unruhe. And because apparently in fiction, victims only say things that are exposition to what we need to move the story along. Very much like Brightheart in Warrior Cats, when she said, "Pack, pack, kill, kill." If you are a Warrior Cats fan, you'll understand that reference. So, Mulder says to Scully, "I've been thinking about this word, Unruhe." He's like, "It means trouble or strife." And she's like, "It means unrest." And then he looks at her and he's like, "You took German in high school, Scully?" And she's like, "No, college." And you know Dana Scully took one course of German in college and speaks it fluently. Later on in the episode, you will see Dana Scully speak German. And homegirl probably hasn't spoken it since college, and she's just fluent in it. I took 4 years of Spanish in high school and a class in college. I can say the colors in Spanish. That's all I can do. I can do the primary colors in Spanish. It's like, what the fuck you talking about? So, they're interrogating Snouse. Scully is livid, and I love to see Scully just unapologetically angry. We'll talk about this in just a minute, how personally she takes these abductions and murders of these young women. Like, Scully very much sees herself in these women. She is very much thinking of her past abductions, with, of course, her abduction in season 2 and by Dwayne Barry, her abduction by Faster, her abduction by Chaco. She's thinking about all of these things. And Homegirl's having PTSD. And she is going off on Snouse. And I love it. I love to see Scully be the bad cop for a little bit. And Mulder is a shitty FBI partner, and just any partner in general. But he does do a solid. He sees Scully, like, getting really worked up, and he steps in. And I love that. That's, again, why couldn't we have this Mulder, like, all the time? Like, why does he have to be a piece of horse shit? So, he talks to Snouse, and he's like, hey, I know you beat your dad and put him in a wheelchair, and I know your sister committed suicide. And then Snouse looks at Scully, and he's like, you look troubled. And, oh no, very much the same way, Spectre sees the newscast of Stella Gibson in the fall and, like, fixates on her. And again, being a woman, you just get this visceral sense of dread when you see scenes like that. You're like, oh, this woman's in trouble. So they take Snouse in to get fingerprinted and what have you. And the cop just turns his back completely on Snouse. He's not cuffed at all. He looks at the picture he took of Snouse, and it shows the cop shot through the head. Again, content warning on this episode. It goes places. And the guy pulls his gun out and shoots him. Like, if this cop had been good at his job, none of the things that would happen after this would have happened. So, like, whew, wrist is cramping, it's cramping. So, Mulder and Scully get a call. They're like, hey, this old druggist that they met at the beginning of the episode, he's been assaulted, you need to get over here. They go over there, they find the poor old man knocked out. He didn't do anything. Like, this poor old man, he's like going through it. So, Mulder's like, so before this, they find the body of Alice Brandt in like a field under some power transformers. And Scully is devastated. Like, Gillian's acting is so good in every episode, but God, like, she sees Alice Brandt's body and she just walks away. She's just pushing past all these officers. She pushes past Mulder. She just goes and sits in the car. Homegirl is struggling with PTSD. Very much seeing herself in these women and feeling so guilty that she could not save this woman. And again, it's very much like in the fall where Stella Gibson takes Rose Stagg's abduction and torture. She takes it personally. She feels responsible for this woman. And I believe because she sees herself very much in that. And then Mulder walks up to Scully and he's like, hey, I'm thinking about the photos and the word. I'm like, Mulder, read the fucking room. Your partner is having a bout with PTSD right now. Like, read the fucking room, man. And Scully's like, what does it matter? You know, it's over. This poor woman is dead. And Mulder's like, but I want to know. And then Scully, like, says, I don't. And a lot of people interpret this as Scully being she's afraid to believe. She's afraid to look any further. And I can see that. But what I interpret it as is Scully's primary drive as an FBI agent and investigating the X-Files is she advocates for the victims. She wants to help the victims. In this case, these young women who have just been brutalized. And whether you think Mulder cares about the victim or not, I personally don't think he does. As Mulder cares, as I believe, this is just my opinion, Mulder cares for the victims as long as it furthers his quest for the truth, this quest he's on. I don't believe Scully, I don't think Scully could give a shit about the supernatural or the paranormal or finding substantial evidence for it. Scully only wants to advocate for the victims. Excuse me. So, like, she's and like, I think that's the main difference in Mulder and Scully and how they approach cases, specifically this case. Like, Mulder is just intrigued by these photographs and getting a glimpse into the killer's mind, and he's just, it's kind of gross how he's romanticizing it. And again, a great scene from The Fall where someone's talking to Stella and they're like, yeah, it must be amazing for you getting inside of this killer's head. And Stella's like, I don't give a fuck about this guy. I only am here to help the victim. And this is Scully's seeds of Stella Gibson in this episode. Like, this is where Gillian first got the hints of Stella Gibson, is in Unruhe. That's what I believe. I can't prove that, but that's what I believe. And again, you could very much, this is very much a metaphor for IRL. Like, cishet white men have no part in these conversations about things like sexual assault against women. Like, or, like, why are they in these conversations? Like, okay, Mulder's sister was abducted, and he's not even sure by who. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Mulder doesn't know who the fuck abducted his sister, and we don't know either until we get that shitty episode in season 7. So, like, where they dropped the Samantha storyline like a hot rock. Scully has been abducted. Scully has been abducted multiple times. She knows that trauma firsthand. And again, I think that's how they approach these cases differently. So, Snouse is on the loose. They leave the druggist shop, and, like, anyway, Scully leaves. She goes to her car. I'm triggered by all of the things you're told about going to your car alone. Like, search in the back seats, get right in the car, lock the doors. Like, it's, like, especially around the holidays, like, people will release these, like, stranger danger warnings. Like, if you have a small child, like, and you're trying to get their car seat in the car, this is something people will, predators will target, like, because the woman's distracted and she's trying to get this baby in the car. So this guy's hiding under Scully's car. He stabs her in the foot with a needle. Again, trigger warning, needles. This episode just lists all the things that scares me. And she passes out. And I don't like Mulder very much. I don't like him. But there are moments when he shines. And I gotta say, him chasing down that explorer on foot, screaming, Scully! Like, that's good. That's some good stuff. Again, when you put it, like, into context, it's not as good. Like, Mulder knew this Snouse guy was on the loose. He knew he was targeting young women that looked like Scully. Why would you let Scully go alone to her car? Okay, like, use the buddy system, Fox Mulder. Again, Mulder trying to outrun vehicles and horses. Trope, take a drink. He really thinks he's faster than a car, and it's so cute. So, Mulder's losing his goddamn mind, and it's pretty sad to watch. Like, he's messed up. But you know who's more messed up? Dana goddamn Catherine Scully. They find out Snouse has been to his dad's old dentist office, and I was busy being triggered through this whole episode, but it got to this part, and my spouse noped out. My spouse fears dentist more than anyone else I know. Like, there's being afraid of the dentist, and then there's my spouse being afraid of the dentist. We got to this part where they, like, the killer took the chair, and he's like, I'm not watching the rest of this. Thanks, I'm good. Bye. He's like, I'm gonna go like eat a Pop-Tart or something, you know. Like, I'm not watching this. So also trigger warning, dentist, I guess. So Mulder, there's a joke by it's not really a joke, it's just an observation, by the Sex Files podcast, which I believe is the best X-Files podcast out there. We love you, Stevie and Emily. Please come back to us. We miss you. We need you in these dark times. They say that Mulder knows the answers because the writers give them to him, and I believe that. Mulder doesn't have to do any fucking work because at the end of the episode, the writer's like, we gotta wrap this up. Let's just give Mulder all the answers. He just knows this stuff. We're not gonna explain why. The way he, like, tells, like, how the fingers in the photo are the same number as the gravestones in the newspaper article. I'm like, yeah, Vince Gillian was just like, we gotta wrap this episode up. Let's just give Mulder all the fucking answers. So, like, Vince Gilligan, like, he has his moments, and sometimes he doesn't. So, they go out to this cemetery where Gerald Schnauz's father has been, because Gerald Schnauz, like so many men, have been hurt by one person. So here's what they're gonna do. They're just gonna try to kill everyone they see. What is the Donald Glover stand-up? And he's like, women get their hearts broken, and they're like, I'm gonna eat some ice cream and, like, chill out with my girlfriends. I'm gonna feel better. And he's like, men get their hearts broken. They're like, I have to kill everyone. I have to kill every person. Like, and that's the same with Schnauz. He's like, it's the same with Spectre in The Fall. It's the same with Donnie Pfaster in Irresistible. It's like, I was hurt by this, or I think I was hurt by this person or this group of people. So everyone has to die. Like, women, all the women have to die. All the women have to die. So, he, like, they track, into the cemetery, and you see this creepy old camper. Again, trigger warning, creepy old campers. Schnauz is inside with a dentist chair. Scully is strapped to it, and I don't like to see Scully get abducted in an episode because it's a tired and stupid trope. But the way she handles this is a fucking boss. She is just calling this guy out and just giving him shit for shit, and I love it. And he says, like, she's like, why are you doing this to me? Is it because I look like your sister? Are you doing this because of what your sister said your father did? You know, God forbid a man get blamed for something. Let's just take it out on all of these innocent women, right? So, he says, no, it's not that. It's the Howlers. And everyone who reviews this episode never mentions the Night Howlers in Zootopia, so I am. There you go. There's your more evidence that Dana Scully is Judy Hopps in the Zootopia universe. Watch Disney's Zootopia, it's fantastic. So, he's like, no, it's the Night Howlers, and he puts his finger right here, and that's foreshadowing of where Scully will get her brain tumor in the cancer arc. So, there you go. I think everyone in the fandom knows that. So, he, like, says, you know, I saw the Howlers in the pictures, and pictures don't lie. And then Scully's like, it's all in your head, bro. He takes the camera. This is the best scene in the whole goddamn episode. One of the best scenes in the X-Files. He takes the camera. He points it at Scully. But then he stops. He turns it around, and he points it at himself. Put a little pin in that. He takes the picture. The pictures develop. He's showing them to Scully. You don't see the pictures. That's also important. He's like, what does this mean? She's like, it means you need help. And he's like, no, it means I gotta do this lobotomy on you right now. Scully relating to the killer and talking to him saved her life. I mean, I know Mulder is trying to come in through the camper with a goddamn pole, but that's what saved her life. Mulder comes in, he shoots Snows, and I like how Scully doesn't fall into Mulder's arms like she did in Irresistible. She's just like, she walks past him. She looks back at Snows, and then she just walks out into the light. I like that. I really like that. Mulder sees the pictures. Excuse me. And you just see Snows lying dead in darkness. Now, this is my headcanon. Are you ready? I believe that Scully influenced the final pictures with her mind. Because we all know Scully's psychic, right? So, Snows points the camera at himself. She is the one, she is the viewer. Okay? So, I believe her mind is influencing the last photos of him dying. She precognitively predicted his death. That's just a headcanon, but I'm sticking with it, alright? So, the last scene, you see Scully typing on her little computer. She's got her little round glasses on, which is just a treat after foregoing this thing. And, she's typing and she's saying, like, the only way I survived was getting inside of this guy's head. But unlike Mulder, who's, like, romanticizing it, he's like, oh, the fantasy of a killer. Like, Scully is just, she's completely disgusted by it. And you'll see this again in Orison, where it's like, Scully's like, I had to get inside this guy's head, but he got inside mine too. Again, give me all the AUs of vengeful Scully, where Scully just goes off the rails and starts seeking revenge. And that's interesting, like how the show kind of hints at Scully getting in the mind of these evil people, but then their evil minds kind of getting in her head. Again, vengeful Scully AU. So that is Unruhe. This went on too long, just like the Jersey Devil, but these are going on way too long. Great episode. It's really hard to watch. If you have problems with these things, and I don't know anyone who wouldn't, like, be warned. Let me know on Twitter. I am at raccoons_dead. What episode you want me to review next. Look me up on Tumblr. I am at Just Awful X-Men Art. That's where I post my art. Or leave a comment below here on YouTube. Have a great day, and I love ya.